orange is new black. So camera people told me, don't stay here because you're blocking the camera. So I'm not going to stay here. I know, Xiaofeng, you want to be near me instead of Pepper? I'm going to go next to Pepper. Okay. So before we get started with the panel, I want to bring one of my buddies here to the front. Come here for Chris. What's going on? What's going on with you? How is life?
I'm excited.
You're excited?
Yeah.
Why? What's going on?
Well, for two reasons, right? The titans of the industry, Micron, Dell, all these guys are talking about how innovations in technology are driving up density at the rack level, and we're building data centers that focuses mainly on driving up density and solving for it. So you can't be more excited than that, right? And then Anush earlier was talking about software-defined and open data centers. We made a bet with you 3 years ago to build open data centers, and it's paying off now, so we're really, really excited.
Absolutely. When we were talking about all this kind of stuff, people were calling us crazy.
Yeah.
All of us understand. These are not normal people,
Yeah.
right? Like, they're changing the industry. You must be crazy to be a leader and innovating all the time, right?
Yeah.
So the reason I just pulled you out first from the panel is because these are all the innovators, but you are at the end of the day a public cloud service.
Yep.
You're a mini Amazon, much better, leaner, meaner, and faster growing.
That's true.
Faster growing company.
Yep.
And you guys are in San Diego.
Yep.
I know there's a video running and so forth, but talk about the company a little bit very quick before we get going with the panel.
So Scale at Matrix is a facilities and infrastructure-based hybrid service provider. We've built data centers that are focused on density. Instead of blowing cold air down the facilities, we raise the density by using liquid cooling at the cabinet level. Instead of doing 12, 15 kW in a rack, we do 45 kW per rack, which is top 1% of data centers globally. We use that as a platform to make very, very competitive cloud services and managed services more affordable for our customers.
And you guys are now going other geographies, right?
San Diego today, Houston today. We're starting to look at the Chicago marketplace and the Eastern Seaboard so that we can make a kind of 4 points of the compass map so customers can choose where to put test and development workloads, production workloads, and disaster recovery workloads.
So the reason I also want to be Chris up front, because all of us as the vendor innovator community, Chris is looking technologies like this.
Yeah, it's very
I got to know you obviously through the Nexenta investment. As an investor, I joined the company.
Yep.
You were one of the first ones who were believing in this open source technology. By the way, Matt here is people don't know Matt, okay? He's the god of ZFS and Illumos. He's the man.
Thank you.
So, did you see this guy with the blue? Is he with Arrow? Is he with you, right? He's like this. Brother, ZFS, zettabyte file system you're talking. We're not talking about petabytes, right? So maybe you should have called YTF, yottabyte or something. We'll get to that as well. The reason I'm just bringing up Chris front, because before anybody believed in this at this scale matrix, no pun intended, you guys believed it and deployed it and running a cloud service. By the way, this is not necessarily tier 2 or tier 3. All of it, from tier 1 to tier N.
So we've made a history out of being kind of the first, right? We changed the way data center technology is run. We're not using cold air, we're using cold water. People told us we were crazy. When we decided to go and launch our first file-based storage system, we chose Nexenta over all others after a very exhaustive search. They said we were crazy for being so out on the edge 3 or 4 years ago. But I can tell you today that after opening the company in 2011, we've experienced 1,400% growth over a 3-year pattern. And it's mainly because we were a little bit ahead of the curve on some of those pieces. We took some risk, and it's really paid off for us well.
No, thank you.
Yep.
And again, I swear, none of this is rehearsed. I promise you. Have you had any kind of a one-on-one conversation what I'm going to ask you? Please? All right, I got it. So Matt, you're the crazy one like me, but much smarter and much more good-looking, and with a lot of wisdom. Looks good.
A lot of gray hairs in
I know.
the beard.
Based on the things you and your team, you guys done, I mean, you should be 100 years old, but actually you're a very young guy. And you started the journey in Sun. Introduce yourself and the journey on ZFS. And obviously you're at Dell Fix. You're one of the principals at Dell Fix. And talk about the company very quick.
Yeah, so we started working on ZFS back in 2001 at Sun Microsystems. And I think briefly to kind of say what we were trying to do, I think the main thing we were trying to do was to end the suffering of system administrators who were struggling with these legacy file systems, volume managers, and big expensive storage systems, where you pay a lot of money for this expensive storage system, and then you have to pay a lot of money for the people to run it because it's so hard to understand. So with ZFS, I think we accomplished that goal, and along the way, really what we ended up doing, in part because Sun open sourced ZFS, is we took these enterprise storage capabilities and we brought them to the masses. So with ZFS, you get things like end-to-end data integrity with checksums, instant time snapshots, replication, all built into open source software that's available on all your favorite platforms. And, it's been able to become the building block that companies like Nexenta and my employer Dell Fix have built on.
Awesome. And by the way, true story. Matt obviously consults with us as one of the founders of this initiative. You work with Dimitri and Alex, our founders, and a lot of other amazing engineers. Next panel, we're going to have actually CU Denver here. Now, so for you to know, at University of Colorado, San Jose State, University of Miami, we are starting new curriculum on ZFS. What you guys built is living, growing, and it's going to be a bigger community now tying into OpenStack, containers on scale up, and now what you're doing, what you have done, taking it to scale out with Cloud Capion, right? Technology, obviously, that we're pushing and leading on. So everything you've done, you create the value, and the network of the folks, still, at Dell Fix. What do you guys do at Dell Fix for those who don't know Dell Fix well?
Yeah, so at Dell Fix, we do storage virtualization. So we started with specific applications like databases. So we ingest production data from like Oracle databases, Microsoft SQL Server databases. We store it using ZFS, and then we can create instant time non-production copies of that database. We stand up the database on your non-production servers for you to run doing development, testing, and we're expanding out to capture more and more types of data used in the IT infrastructure. So the key thing that we're doing is really integrating the fundamental technology of ZFS all the way up the application stack with applications like Oracle and even like e-business suite applications that run on top of Oracle. Super.
This panel is super cool. You're still not getting it. These are all founders of some movement. These are you guys are the outliers. So from one outlier, one crazy outlier to another crazy outlier. So Sheng, I'm looking at you.
All right.
You're not looking at me. You're checking out Pepper. You're super crazy. I thought mine more shiny. You guys have eye contact. What's going on there? I don't know. I thought you were married. A question for you. You are the father, grandfather of Cloud.com, right? Which become Cloud Stack. A lot of work with OpenStack and all the other Dynamix. Now you started Rancher Labs and Rancher, right?
Right.
And now you're talking containers. Dude, whenever I catch you, you're in the next zone. Yeah. I cannot keep up with you.
It's just so much fun because we're in an industry, in a time right now where innovation really never stops. And I just thought, you can't get more fun with clouds. Then container came along. And what's amazing is a lot of people say containers and cloud, containers going to take over from virtualization. But I don't really look at that at all. I mean, really, the kind of stuff we're doing is effectively help people put containers in production, which will really make cloud a lot more successful. We want to see the future of the world won't just have one big cloud provider or a handful of cloud providers, but there will be many private and public cloud providers. And I think containers being portable is going to play a big part of that.
So what does Rancher do?
We do a container management platform that enable people create container services. So if you think about container service, it's basically like a cloud service for containers.
Fantastic. So I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to put you on the spot. Docker guys and Ben are great friends of ours. We do a lot of work with them. But there's always question, what's the business model, from a financial perspective? I look at you, and I'm looking at you. You're the guy creating dollar bills with containers. So you're actually a financial model behind that. So for those VCs in the room, you're a good guy to talk to, how to make money around containers. Because it's not only a charity work. Obviously, it's going to have a big impact on IT administrators, DevOps, but beyond that, there is a business model behind that. So I'm going to come back to you on this at a later stage. Because who understands the business model the best? Let's talk to my friend Cesko. So Cesko, should I call you Cesko or Francesco?
Chesco's fine.
Chesco is cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Solunium, you guys are the premier service provider, a boutique shop growing very fast. So how is business? Talk about Sony a little bit and yourself, and then tell us how is the OpenStack world moving, and maybe a container touch-in, since Rancher right to your left.
Is that one question or three?
3 questions, but in 1 sentence.
Got it. No, Selenia, actually, I co-founded Selenia about 2.5 years ago to help organizations adopt open infrastructure, starting with OpenStack, which at the time was starting to gain momentum in the enterprise. And as we evolved the organization, we saw that our customers basically asking us, help me do more with this open infrastructure, open source, open system type of environment, that where ways that I can bring it into my enterprise. And so we've evolved along with the technology. Today we heard a lot of folks talk about open data centers, open source, open. And really what we do is we actually take all of the work that you do from a technology perspective and help to put it together for enterprises. And so we've worked with one of the top 5 auto manufacturers to help them deploy a very large big data supporting OpenStack Cloud in partnership with Nexenta, for example. We work with the leading media organization to help build a hybrid cloud running Mirantis OpenStack on the private side and leveraging AWS on the public side for media streaming, sporting events. And so we're really seeing the dynamic of this evolution, revolution in technology change, and we're helping enterprises embrace that because they can't do it themselves because the technology is changing way too fast and they don't have the skills to do it, and that's where we come in.
No, fantastic. And you're the founder of the company. You're one of the crazy outliers who made it happen. By the way, earlier panel was fun. All the blue chip companies and so on is great. They're defining what the customers are doing today. They have been doing it, but you're special. You're the shiny people. You're the smart, intelligent, crazy, good-looking, right? Speaking of good-looking, Dan. You are the father and maybe also the grandfather of the PC or IP. You need to explain what that means. Teradici. Define Desktop Virtualization, big VMware partner, that's why you're here. You guys doing amazing things. OpenStack is an area that you're looking at. You should definitely meet Chesco. Tell about the company. You guys are in Canada, obviously. Sorry about the World Cup. So what's next for Teradici? Give us first today, where you are. You made an amazing announcement here. Just talk about the next phase for Teradici and Desktop Virtualization as a whole.
Sure. Thanks, Tarkan. And it's been nice getting to know Pepper as we've been sitting over here while the other panelists were up. But so Teradici, we're a late-stage growth company. We are best known for the technology we developed, a protocol called PC over IP that its intention and our drive is to deliver a very rich user experience out of a cloud or out of a data center. And we also bring a lot of security benefits. So when you're moving, Windows virtual machines or desktops or applications into the cloud, we can deliver this exceptional user experience. We're best known for our relationship with VMware, which is now about 7 years old, and we've worked very closely with VMware on their Horizon product, their VDI product, and then more recently their DAS product in vCloud Air. And just about 2 years ago, AWS announced their Amazon Workspaces DAS product using our technology as well. So we've really been in this whole VDI DAS space really since the beginning and have benefited from that. And usually at these conferences, people say, okay, is this the year of DAS or is this the year of VDI? And we're seeing really great traction and really great growth rates. But I think to your point, Tarkan, what's really exciting for us is we've been inundated over the last year or two with a lot of companies coming to Teradici and saying, hey, can you give me that technology that you've given VMware or Amazon? And we also work closely with Dell and Samsung and HP and LG. Can you give us that technology? Because we have this service we want to build in the cloud. Or we have this application we want to deliver. And this is startups, this is service providers, telcos, a lot of SIs coming to us saying, hey, I want to build something for my customer, ISVs who are trying to figure out how do I move my application into the cloud. And a lot of these are really high-end applications, things like CAD/CAM applications. We're very strong in the media and entertainment space, so a lot of Hollywood studios and people who service that part of the market really trying to move all workloads into the cloud or into the data center. and need this really rich experience. So a couple months ago, we just launched our Teradici pervasive computing platform, which is really where we've taken all the software we've given VMware and AWS over the years and put it into an SDK with APIs, and we validated it on all the major cloud platforms, AWS, Google Compute, IBM SoftLayer, Microsoft Azure. We've also got customers using it in OpenStack. It's hypervisor agnostic, so it can go into a lot of these hyper-converged appliances and things, and it's just unlocking. I think what the market wants to see and customers want to do is, yes, VDI and DAS are great, but I've got specific services or products or applications I want to deliver out of the cloud. And that's really what we're driving. So we're seeing, again, like a lot of the other people up here, just this explosion of innovation and just incredible things people want to do with this.
Absolutely. And the Wipro example that VDI deployment with Carl Eschenbach we shared this morning with VMware was all about some of your stuff with PC over IP, VDI, desktop virtualization with Nexenta in the back end, and in a software-defined way, supporting the end user.
Right.
Software-defined end user, let's not go there. That's going to be too crazy. But tying to that, in order to deliver that kind of value, you need to have great networks. So, JR, obviously, you're changing the game in networking, right? In a big way.
That's the plan.
Absolutely, and we love the way you change it. I know that Cisco was earlier on the stage. We talked about Cisco partner. Praveen is Cisco at VCE. He talked about some of the new things happening. And you are redefining SDN again. Talk about your company. You were with us last year. You talked about a lot of progress. How is this year looking like? What is next for you guys at Cumulus? Go ahead.
Excellent. Yeah, so I'm J.R. Rivers. I'm co-founder and CEO of a company called Cumulus Networks. The focus of us is to make high-capacity networking available to the masses. If you look at cloud infrastructure put together by the megascales, they talk about a lot of the underlying technologies, but inevitably it's all enabled by super high-performance, cost-effective networking. And most of them, at least half of the ones in the US today don't use the incumbent providers, and the ones that have been using the incumbent providers will not be using the incumbent providers in the next 2 years. They're able to use a supply chain that's kind of closer to industry standard hardware, and in some cases they've homegrown software that runs on these platforms, and in some cases they're actually using our software. By separating the hardware and software from each other, you're able to get incredible performance because you can get the right hardware at the right price points, and you get a very consistent common operating model. And we tie into a lot of the tool chains that people use to administer cloud infrastructure. So, technologies, around for configuration management, monitoring, analytics, provisioning, deployment, all of those tie really well into our software base. So you asked about progress. It's actually super cool right now. We're seeing us firing on all cylinders. We have, on this, what you might think is mundane and boring, we have little police departments in Tennessee using our technology in production, and we have, radiology clinics in Australia that run full cities and ER departments and mission critical applications using us in production. These are all people that again needed great high performance networking that tied in with their server tool chain. A bunch of banks are starting to use this in production, and they're realizing this awesome benefit in that by rethinking how they buy networking and how they interact with it from an operational perspective allows them to change the way their whole IT operations staff. A lot of these people are moving to converge infrastructure teams, effectively a whole group of sysadmins that might know a little bit more about storage, a little bit more about networking, but they manage a whole cluster. And they're super efficient, and they put together great levels of automation, which allowed them to scale out incredibly. It's that promise of software-defined data center that's killing it. One of the largest content media companies in the world is using us to deliver technology that you're probably all looking at right now on your phones. We're getting used by service providers for video on demand delivery, kind of a whole bunch of different use cases, all with that same common purpose of, I want really bitchin' networking, I want it now, and I want it really, really easy to deploy.
And you guys are doing this from a software perspective. There are a lot of players in this space, but you guys are one of the most innovative leaders in the space. And the progress is great to hear, because last year when you spoke, people are, oh, this is great, but too good to be true. And now they realize this is happening. And we kind of lived on the SDS side, on the software-defined storage side, the same kind of a change, just like Chris Orlando talked about from Scale Matrix. By the way, you should talk to Scale Matrix.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that when he was talking.
And I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of opportunity for you guys. But having said all this, someone said earlier, stuff needs to still, work on hardware, and connectivity is huge important. It's still big importance for the users. Obviously, I don't want to sound cliche, but one of the key things we get from our customers is high availability, and deliver that high availability over wide area networks. So, Adam, my friend from Buffalo. So most people probably don't know you. I'll tell you, up until 3 years ago, I did not know much about Addo. We partner with you guys in a big way. I don't know what's going on with microphones. You need to scream and yell. But Tim, you're one of the co-founders.
Yep, I'm one of the co-founders.
You're the CEO.
Yes.
Your CTO is a co-founder.
Yes.
Your CTO makes you work, and he's at Buffalo having barbecues right now for Labor Day.
That's right.
And you're here on an orange,
and beautiful, right?
And you're here with an orange guy in front of a crazy banner with a bunch of crazy people doing a panel.
An orange T-shirt.
So what do you guys do? What do you guys make?
So we're actually the physical layer, right? I mean, we're all about making those hard drives and systems actually perform to what they need to support these open systems. Addo's been around for 28 years. We do a lot of innovative products. It's kind of interesting. This is a startup innovation story. While we're not a startup, we certainly do innovation constantly. We're producing new products every 6 months because the industry is constantly demanding faster, a richer data delivery.
I need to say something on this one. When I told you you're going to be on the second panel, Startup Innovation, you almost cried from happiness. After 28 years, I'm renewed again. I'm going to talk to my wife about this.
Well, it's funny because we, even though we're been around quite a while, we actually run very much like a startup. We move very, very quickly. We work with a lot of companies. The majority of our business is OEM, so a lot of people in here are probably using some Addo technology and you just don't even know that you're using it. So that's really what.
So dumb it down, simply. Yeah. What are we using? Like Nexenta, Addo, we do Metro HA, Metro High. Explain what that is very quick.
So we actually make a bridge product that allows you to connect your SAN devices directly, your SATA and SAS devices directly into Fiber Channel. And so what does that mean? It means that you can actually get very, very high performance connectivity between your storage and actually in high availability situations. So we worked with Nexenta on their Metro HA line to be able to bring their software clustering to be able to actually extend it city to city.
Yeah. And you've been doing this for a long time. Actually, Addo is like, have you seen Star Wars? The dark side, the Dark Empire has those soldiers, white soldiers. Imagine Addo used to make those gears. Then they are Jedi'd out. Now they're making gears for the Jedi Force. So you're a friend of ours, even though for the past 27 years you were on the wrong side. Thank you for we're welcoming you to the Jedi Force.
The wrong side.
I'm sure Empire will strike back again, but you're going to be on our side this time.
There you go.
So we'd love to have you. So you said one word, performance. That's a big issue for us, for vendors like us and for our customers and partners, and as well as VCs and investors. Because investors, sorry of all, including my board, have no clue where to put their money unless you're going to tell them the story in a true manner, and performance results mean a lot.
Yes.
And usually companies do their own tweaking, and vendors know, and all these little tweaking numbers in a marketing way to look good, but there's a company among you, Philip, you're going to talk about load dynamics. You keep it real, baby. Talk to me about load dynamics. What are you guys doing? Our relationship with GoDaddy. Elisa talked about this a little bit also in our speech. What do you guys do, who you are, and what's next for you?
So the company is called Load Dynamics. So I'm Philippe Vincent, the CEO of the company, and very excited to be here with you today. Also very excited to hear about all the ambition and innovation that we're talking about. By and large, what we do is we help customers absorb that innovation and do this with relatively reduced risk. So to give a clear example of what we do, and in the case of our relationship with GoDaddy, we give customers, well, we sell them the ability to simulate their data center workloads with great level of fidelity. And they can use that in their pre-production environment, staging, or their lab or otherwise, to simulate the workloads they have in their data centers, and then start figuring out what else they're going to be putting in their data center. So they might be moving from, let's say, a disk-based technology to a flash technology. They might be moving from a closed technology to an open technology. Or in the case of our joint customer, they might decide that they might be bold enough to actually put their mission-critical workloads and ask Nexenta maybe a couple of years back to essentially bid for that business. And what they're able to do is to actually validate that the configuration that's in front of them is actually going to meet their workload requirements, potentially even exceed them, as well as deliver the kind of cost improvements that they're seeking.
So you basically a lie detector for IT teams to use against vendors.
Well, I think we're about empowering those who want to seek the truth.
You're so political. I love it. But bottom line, joking all aside, on GoDaddy example, complete halo, I swear. You should run for the presidential campaigns, But joking all aside, GoDaddy example is a perfect example. Can you tell the story very quick? Because Elisa was here, it's very contextual. What happened there exactly, step by step, would be great for people to realize what you guys exactly do.
You mean from GoDaddy in particular?
Yeah, from GoDaddy perspective.
I think the idea here is that you have an IT organization that decides they need to move, they need to be in motion, they need to pursue innovation. And the challenge with doing that is that you're going to need to introduce that in your data center, and you might be running modules that support 20,000 of your users. Before you're ready to do that, you better know how to validate. And I think what they did with us is that they actually took our technology, learned how to simulate their workloads, I must say, well before our own product was really ready interface-wise to do that elegantly, which it now does. But they were able to create a very precise model of their storage workloads. And then by the time you've done that, you kind of play it back against the configuration that your team put together, and it arrived at a very high level of confidence that that solution would meet their workload requirements. And I think what that story, this is about the time when our company started focusing on enterprise customers, because we realized that there was a thirst for innovation. There were very powerful economic drivers to push enterprises to make change in the environment. And what used to be, I think, a fairly conservative industry was now going to really change. And so we decided to build technology to empower them and help them make those kinds of decisions and really take control of their cost performance envelope. And we've been pursuing that now for the better of the past couple of years. And we now have dozens of customers of that kind between hyperscale customers, banks, pharmaceutical, healthcare, essentially all of the major,
all the verticals. Yeah.
All major enterprises are now targets for us and customers we want to serve.
Thank you for very interesting. Obviously, I'm sure that people are going to connect with you later because a lot of companies are struggling with this. What's the real data and the real outcomes of these deployments, especially with these new software-defined OpenStack, open source deployments. How do we realize the right performance metrics, apples to apples? Because sometimes a lot of tweaking going on from vendors, they're not necessarily relieving and revealing the truth. So thank you for being part of it. You want to add something?
Yeah, and just one last point. I think it brings great opportunities to partner with companies like Nexenta in the field and helping you prove your worth to your customers very efficiently and kind of accelerate those sales cycles and making this a lot less dramatic for customers to make those kinds of changes.
Yeah, you're the
so
right
we seek to partner with all innovators.
Absolutely. So tying that to Casey, I'm going to come to you. Okay. You're primary data. Yes. Talk about the company. It's a new company. You guys launched just recently.
Yes.
All right. And you've been in. Give me a little bit background. You have an interesting background personally, but on top of that, talk about primary data. And again, the same. What's next for you? Promote the company because we want to understand. There was a lot of hoopla about this. You guys doing a lot of good work. Let us know where you guys going from here now into the future.
Sounds good. So that's 6 questions. I'm going to make sure I hit all 6 of them. And
absolutely.
First of all, before I answer any of them, I want to thank you for this event because when I was sitting in on the first panel, based upon what you were saying, Ben Wu was saying, and everything, you guys did all the marketing for me. That was fantastic, right? The whole notion of software-defined storage, software-defined data center, and a software-defined business, right? That is exactly what we're all about, not just so much with software, but the key about software-defined is you shouldn't care about what the underlying infrastructure is. It shouldn't matter. The vendor shouldn't matter. The physical hard drive shouldn't matter. It should just be, can I meet my business service level objectives? First and foremost, and that's the only thing that should matter. And at Primary Data, that is what we're focused on doing. So a little bit about me. So I'm the SVP for Product Management and Global Sales for Primary Data. Before this, I've been in a number of startups and introduced new disruptive technologies like data deduplication, database virtualization, storage virtualization. So Matt and I actually worked together at Dell Fix, and I was the first person to launch the go-to-market teams for Dell Fix. And it was really exciting when I met David Flynn and Rick White for the first time, and they were leaving Fusion.io. They were the two co-founders. And they had this vision. And the vision was that, look, data is growing enormously, and there's more storage vendors today than there ever been. We're at VMworld this week, and I swear it's no longer a virtualization show. It's now the de facto storage industry show. Right?
Amazing, isn't it?
Right, and so it's really hard for customers to actually figure out what type of storage they need, let alone the vendor they need, because there's such a wide array of performance, cost, data services, reliability, and availability, with a huge spectrum all the way from server-side flash to shared storage, all-flash arrays, and even to the cloud. So the point where some of the gentlemen from I forgot who was talking about it, was saying, it's not about the media anymore. It's not about who has the best flash, who has the best disk drives. It's knowing where your data needs to go and when and why. So that's the challenge we're solving at Primary Data with intuitive software, allowing you to define the specific business level objectives that's important to your applications in granularity, specific levels of performance, protection, price, manageability, and then having visibility to the underlying storage, all of the underlying storage and their capabilities. So you can align the capabilities of storage with the business level of objectives that you're trying to achieve. And the key is to do this all with software, to work on multiple vendors of storage. So it doesn't matter if it's Nexenta, IBM, HP, EMC, NetApp, doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter what protocol it is, file, block, or object. And to do it in a non-disruptive way that doesn't impact performance. So that's what we're doing at Primary Data.
So, Casey, you mentioned you guys launched, right? Talk about the timeline a little bit.
Yeah. So
when are you guys ready and selling? Are you guys doing this right now, or give us a little bit more data for the folks?
Thank you. So we did our product launch this week, actually at VMworld. So it's been really exciting. After 2 years, we finally were able to get to this point to do the product launch. And the reason why we chose VMworld to do our product launch is because, as you know, with vSphere 6.0, one of the most important capabilities to the industry is vVols, virtual volumes, which we think is a fantastic idea from a strategy and a vision perspective. What we talk to a lot of customers, though, is the challenge of adopting vVols, right? vVols is great, but if you don't have a storage array that's vVol certified, you can't get vVol's capability. Well, last time we checked, there's about $300 billion of storage that's been sold so far. And about 70% of that is probably in the VMware environment. So there's a lot of customers who have existing storage, want vVol capabilities, but can't get it until they rip and replace their existing storage. Enter Primary Data. You can keep your existing storage and get all the functionality of vVols, regardless of which vendor you're at. So we thought it was a great synergy, great story, and it was very appropriate for us to launch at VMworld.
So you're bridging those two themes together, which is super exciting.
Yes.
So thank you, Casey. This was very helpful. And you're a great presenter, but I enjoy listening to you. So
Thank you.
tying all of those things together, one of my favorite companies on the panel is this, obviously, also in terms of naming of the company, as well as the founder of the company and what they do. So Luke, you're the founder and CEO of Puppet Labs. Speaking of Puppet Labs, Pepper is gonna love this company. You're based in Portland, right? You're originally from there, from that part of the country?
Nope.
You've been all over the place. I know. You were telling me this amazing story. A lot of people don't know in the room, but they know what they do, what you do. But a little bit of background on the company history would be helpful, because you started doing this work yourself, and you saw the problem as an administrator, and you started the company, which is an amazing story, like the rest of the panel. And talk about the company today and where you're going from here.
All right. So thank you for having me on the panel and giving me the chance to talk to the audience. Puppet Labs, what we provide, Puppet is basically a platform for automation, configuration management, security, compliance, really all the things you need to do to your stupid computers that in so many places today are done by humans. The vast majority of organizations, almost all of the work that you do in your infrastructure is done by people. Automation is less than 15% penetrated in the market. That's just server automation. It's even lower percentages for storage, for network, for databases. So what that means is the reliability rates we see, which is to say the lack of reliability rates we see, the low performance, the extreme slowness is really where a lot of it comes down to. The poor security, the poor compliance, all these things are heavily influenced and in most cases mostly caused by the fact that all this work is done manually. And so a big part of what we do for our customers is we help them move much, much more quickly, but actually provide greater security, greater reliability all at the same time. So looking at people moving from deploying a piece of software in 9 months to doing it in 30 minutes, literally. So we have customers who have saved $1 million in deployment fees or deployment timelines just in a couple of months after deployment, people who are managing thousands and thousands of virtual machines in very short order. So I started the company about 10 years ago after being a sysadmin. I'd spent some time doing a lot of the work myself, writing tools, using other people's tools, trying to help another company build tools, and eventually I gave up and said, I'm just gonna have to do it myself. And so for 3.5 years, it really was just me. I was the only employee of the company. And then we took our first round of funding in 2009. Since then, we've grown from 3 people to we'll cross 400 sometime in the next couple of weeks. So the company's still growing very strongly, still doing very well, and it's a pretty exciting time. I like to think of Puppet as the shortest path to better software. Everywhere around, what people are trying to do is not so much to achieve a single state. It's how can I improve things faster than the people around me? It's kind of the Moore's law for the software supply chain. How do I make it so that I'm putting out new software faster and more often than anyone around me? And if you think about over sometime in the future, all of that software, all of that configuration, all of that work will be done by other software. I don't know if it's going to be in 50 years. It's probably going to be more than 5 and probably less than 50. So at some point, that whole software supply chain is going to be completely rebuilt with every component being built in the assumption that software is going to do the installation, the configuration, the management, the ongoing maintenance of it. I'm here to make it so the Puppet is the platform for that new software supply chain.
And obviously, within that context, look, the OpenStack revolution or evolution, however you want to call it, has been an amazing opportunity for you because as things like you mentioned, moving to more open systems, people need more automation, and that's where you came in the right time, right place. The reason I love the story, because as a user, you see the problem and you create. This is an amazing Silicon Valley story. Happens to happen in Portland, which is great. I'm not going to use that against you, but amazingly built the company, bootstrapped it, and then now you're taking it at a stage, at a rate for growth never seen before in that specific space. And I know you work with Solunia, you work with other partners. Mirantis is going to be here in the next session. Adrian is going to be here. How are you seeing now OpenStack sphere moving into, with the containers coming in a bigger way? How do you see the next 5 years of the area that you're focusing on?
So for us, we work to be very agnostic. We don't care if it's physical, virtual, public, private, server, virtual machine, container, switch, storage, everything. We want to manage everything. If it's at an IP address, we want to manage it. If you aren't embarrassed to admit that you run it, I want to make sure that we can manage it for you. So OpenStack is an important part of what we do. More than half of all OpenStack clouds are built and managed by Puppet, in no small part because Mirantis' solution is built on Puppet, Red Hat's solution is built on Puppet, Cisco's cloud is built on Puppet. So a huge portion of the large clouds people are building, we're a big part of getting those into production. So that's an important part of it, but if we were to come here and say we're an OpenStack company or we're a container company, then that limits what we can do. What we want to say is, whatever it is, the answer is yes. Yes, you can manage it. Yes, you can deploy on it. Yes, you can update it. Yes, we can secure it. Yes, we can confirm it's secured. And yes, when you go to an update tomorrow and the next day and 25 the day after that, we can help you with that. Super.
Well done. So, through Spirit, speed date format, but I'm going to come back to the panel now, thinking about your call to action, as we've done in the previous panel. Within the context of your company, give a call to action to the audience. Let's then start with you.
Yeah, so if you've got any kind of service or application or anything you want to build in the cloud or the data center, deliver it with great security, great user experience, please come to look at our pervasive computing platform. Just go to our website, teradici.com/platform, and we want to help you build great things. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Tarkan.
Matt?
So I think probably everyone in this room is using open source software and technology. So my call to action is to participate in those communities. Don't just take, but give back, engage with those communities. There's a lot of really bright people there, and they would love to hear your input, hear your stories, and also contribute source code, contribute support at conferences like this. That'd be great.
Thank you, Matt.
I would probably say that, and I know why we work in the software world, that there is a difference when it comes to performance and latency when connecting your storage devices into your computing systems. And when you think of that, think of Atto.
Super. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Casey.
Yes, so what I like to say is as customers are starting to build their next generation of applications, the next generation of infrastructure, don't think about the infrastructure as silos and get into the old way of doing things. Think about it from a data perspective. It all comes down to objectives of the data, and whatever platform you choose, think about having a unified software layer that allows you to use whatever storage media, whatever storage vendor, whatever storage type, even from on-site all the way to the cloud, and have intelligent policies so that you can dynamically put data at the right place at the right time.
Fantastic. And look, by the way, look, one last point I want to add to what you said. You mentioned a lot of work you're doing. Obviously, as you know, Nexenta platform is heavily dependent on Puppet. We work with you guys a lot. We're going to talk about a customer that actually Francesco mentioned. Didn't mention the name. I mentioned it already. They're going to go public very soon. Hyundai Car Cloud. We talked about it, and there's a big deployment we're working on. Puppet is all over that place with our team. So thank you for all the hard work. You made Hyundai Car Cloud happen. If you're not driving in Hyundai, you need to buy one. Go ahead.
My call to action would be that as you look at the software and technology delivered to your customers, define your own kind of Moore's law internally. Define rules for how quickly and how often your own software will improve for your customers, because everyone around you is.
Super. Philip.
So my call to action to anybody in IT is to innovate. Embrace the new technologies, embrace the returns they can bring you, embrace the differentiation they can bring you, and work with load dynamics to make sure that your workloads will be supported as you do that.
To keep it real with the performance data.
Yeah.
I'm just bringing it down to a level that everybody understands. You're the lie detector, don't forget. You're doing a great job.
Thank you, Tarkan.
Anytime. JR.
I've got two calls to action. The first thing is, if you have a team that's based around running your own infrastructure, drive your company to continuously improve. Always try to have the best administrative team you can. Go out and talk to other people in the industry and understand what the best practices are, because we see customers all the time that struggle with that question. Why is my admin team not so good? And more often than not, the answer is because you don't let them. You don't encourage them or drive them to get there. So that's one call to action. Other call to action is ask your team what your networking supplier has done for you lately. More often than not, the answer is going to be nothing. And then ask yourself, what is the operating margin of my networking supplier, and how does that compare to my operating margin? And when you find out that they're making way more money than you and they're not doing anything for you, ask your team why they're not out looking for better networking providers.
Nice one. By the way, you're such an outlier. Everybody has one, you have two. You got to do that, right? I love it. Go ahead, Chang.
No, I know there's a lot of talk about containers, but I think the true business potential of containers is still underappreciated and misunderstood. So if you're a IT provider, wondering how containers can actually make you more profitable, or you're an IT organization who are consumers of technology, wonder how you actually put containers in production, lower infrastructure cost, make developers more agile, please talk to me.
By the way, Sheng, what is the logo? Containers, and that's a cow?
Yeah. We're big believers in the pets versus cattle model, and we herd cattle, so we're rancher.
I love that. Nicely one. Francisco.
Thanks. Just staying on theme here, adopting open infrastructure is really difficult for enterprises. All the panelists here make awesome products to enable open infrastructure, as does Nexenta. We help put those products together, specifically for solving business problems for the enterprise.
Super, and thank you for all the hard work at Hyundai and a few other customers we're working together. You guys have been amazing. Any kind of an OpenStack deployment or beyond, you built an amazing team worldwide, so really appreciate working with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Chris, you started it, you finish it, baby.
Sure. I'd encourage anybody to look at your runway and the runway of any service providers that you might be working with. You hear a lot about all the amazing innovation that's happening. There are a lot of aging data centers where all this stuff is going to have to live. So look at the runway and the future proofing of any solution that you're building and that of any service provider you might be looking towards. If you need help figuring any of that out, the team at Skill Matrix will be happy to help you.
Super. Thank you all. Thank you for the speed date format, very fast, really appreciate it. And by the way, you guys were faster than the blue chip guys. Like it. Thank you. Come on in. So we're gonna bring in Dan Nolt. Dan, right here in front, as you guys walking down.